I think one interesting way to potentially introduce the concept of exit to community is with a completely new technology that starts from that concept. So instead of businesses needing to shift conventional thinking, you're introduced to a new way of thinking and a new technology. Have you personally done any thinking, and you mentioned a little earlier, but very specifically around the concept of community as a digital asset, specifically a blockchain-based asset, where its value can be shared amongst its users?
Yeah. I mean, this idea, is something I remember coming up, in the very earliest discussions in Ethereum world. Like before Ethereum was software, when it was still just a white paper. I remember, proposals along the lines of, of what you all are building, coming up then. Of course, there's a big difference between a proposal and an implementation that actually works and that people actually want to use. And the best ideas are the ones that, lots of people are thinking of at once. And, on the one hand, I think it's a very powerful match between, this idea of creating communities that are, the responsible parties for companies, and a technology that actually is able to represent those communities in a more fine-grained way. Stock certificates are, really are really old kind of technology, and they have a lot of limitations that we could undo in terms of, greater liquidity, more interesting governance rights, more finely tuned relationships, both laterally among community members and between the network as a whole in the community. From the beginning, I was never interested when people talked about, when people started trying to convince me I should be paying attention to Bitcoin, for instance, because I'm just not a money guy. Like, I'm not one of these people who's like worried about the Federal Reserve and the gold standard and all this stuff. Like, I recognize that there are issues there, and I'm glad that some people care about that stuff. I don't. I'm just not into it. But what I am into is those experiences of democracy. And as soon as, the thing that got me excited about Ethereum was, here was a vision for how that could change how people relate to each other and how they build their communities. The danger, of course, is that there's something very powerful about the unknowability of communities, about the intangible, the non-computational features of them. You think of like the old, Marcel Mauss, like the old ethnography from the 19th century, and early 20th century about gift exchanges, and the way in which a gift loses its power when it is, when there's a transaction involved. When it starts to feel like a transaction, it's no longer a gift. When a community starts to feel like a speculative asset, is it really a community anymore? And so I think that's one side of the concerns I have about these kinds of approaches. And it's a concern that doesn't make me want to step away. It makes me want to step into how can we find the right balance here between the living, human, thriving side of a community and, its economics and its self-governance. These are, the challenges that we have to confront today. And another piece of it too is that, crypto systems tend to mimic the logic of stake weight. So, how much money you have is how much power you have, how much you stand to benefit. The cooperative tradition, in contrast, has more of this logic of one person, one vote. The idea that we want to create a system in which every person has equal value, even if maybe they have different amounts of assets. There is a fundamental fairness about it. I'm really interested in how we can, draw on some of those traditions of cooperatives and commons-based, resource management to counteract some of the kind of hyper-capitalist logic that has gotten really quickly imported into the crypto world.
Yeah, I feel like as we all dig deeper into this concept, someone with your perspective is just becomes more and more valuable. Just sort of this overall reminder of the importance of community, and that being sort of an overall theme as things potentially become speculative. Yeah, so we're entering sort of the fifth, sixth, seventh year of Ethereum. It seems like you've been watching it for a while. What are your general thoughts on how it's manifested in your words from a white paper to software?
Well, it's been such a roller coaster. I mean, on the one hand, I remember at the very beginning there was really a strong kind of utopian bent among a lot of the people involved, but then there were also the kind of the business folks, like the Joseph Lubins and the and you see this kind of ebb and flow between the kind of pragmatists and the visionaries, and sometimes it's hard to know who is who. And where we are today, I honestly I've felt I'm not as up on the recent progress as I could be, partly because I just haven't been able to figure out how to get it into my life. I keep trying to find like projects to get involved in. Like I keep periodically I'm asking on social media, like, are there any DAOs that are actually worth joining? And by the way, like, I'm not an investor, right? I'm not interested in just trying to make money. Like, is there something that's actually fun? Is there something that is going to provide me some benefit? And this is an old complaint, but this I think really remains the challenge, and it's meant that I've in the meantime really kept my interest broad and focused a lot more on some of the legal policy, old world financial mechanisms that can achieve community ownership, because some of it seems like some of these mechanisms are lagging. That said, I think we're the kind of Biddle stage has been bearing a lot of fruit. It's been really fun, for instance, to see the development of Gitcoin here in Colorado. The Kevin Owocki, the founder of Gitcoin, is a neighbor of mine, and so we've been staying in touch, and it's really fun to see this thing go from an idea and a bunch of conversations to something that is really helping to power the development of common resources in the ecosystem. So I'm really really eager to see what can come up. There are a number of projects that I'm excited about for exit to community potential. Certainly Roll is one of those, where enabling people to build those communities of shared assets more easily. Fairmint, I think, is really interesting in terms of creating kind of continuous liquidity and moving companies away from the idea that exit is necessarily a kind of singular liquidity event rather than being a kind of ongoing process. And so these kinds of moves are just super exciting and necessary. I'm not, still not putting all my eggs in the crypto basket, but I'm, whenever these kinds of opportunities come up, I think we just need to say, yes, how can we make these more available? How can we make these work? How can we, bring kind of responsible co-ownership to the many people who don't have access to it? And it's just so to underscore the importance of this stuff. It's fun technical stuff, but we in the United States, for instance, the richest country in the world, still, like, most of the population does not have capital assets, and that's a profound tragedy if there is anything about capitalism that is running the world, because capital is what enables people to have the ability to do something other than work in their lives. And I tend to think that we should democratize capital, and that this idea that most people, so many families, are living without savings, without any kind of firm assets, If we can change that, if we can get to the point where everybody has, some ownership in the economy, where everybody is a kind of firmer stakeholder, it's just an incredible chance for us to all grow together. And so the justice implications of community ownership are just immense. And it does, finally present a real danger in the crypto world, where so much of the things that are being built now are kind of reaffirming and amplifying existing privilege and access. We're seeing people who already have a lot getting more. To me, a big question is, when are we going to stop just saying we're challenging that and actually challenge some of those patterns?